As the night grows quiet around you, we welcome you into a softer world where lost sightings and hidden events gently come back to life. These are the UFO stories that were never shown in the news, but perhaps they were never supposed to be. As you slowly fall asleep, ask yourself, why do certain dreams return again and again? Strange lights in the sky, unfamiliar visitors, time that goes missing. Could these things mean something deeper? This is Volume 3 of our Fall Asleep to the Unheard series. Let your thoughts drift, and if one story stays in your mind, let us know in the comments when you wake up. Now, close your eyes, relax, and let the unknown begin to show itself. The Trainus Incident, October 21st, 1963. Trainus, Argentina. It all began with a bark. On the calm night of October 21st, 1963, in the quiet farming town of Truncas in northern Argentina, three sisters were woken by the loud, non-stop barking of their dog. The Mareno sisters, Argentina, Yolanda, and Magdalena, were living on their family's farm just outside the village. Their mother, still recovering from sickness, was resting in a room at the back of the house. Their father was away for work. What happened next would be remembered as one of the strongest and most mysterious UFO sightings ever reported in South America. The barking did not stop. Then they heard a low buzzing sound, a deep hum that shook the walls slightly. At first, the sisters thought it might be a broken machine or a truck passing by, but no sound matched that strange tone. Their worry grew when the lights in the house dimmed, then turned a strange blue color, and finally returned to normal. Argentina Mareno, the oldest, went outside to look. What she saw made her cry out. In the field beside their home, near the railway tracks, she saw a group of glowing lights. 5 bright white orbs of light were lined up in a perfect row. They hovered just above the ground and gave off thick clouds of smoke. Beams of light moved in slow, robotic motions across the field. She quickly called out to her sisters, and the three of them stood together in silence, completely drawn in by what they saw. Their dog whimpered and backed away, its tail tucked between its legs. As the sisters kept watching, one of the orbs sent out a thin beam of light, aiming straight toward the house. The object made no sound except for the constant buzzing. When the beam touched the metal latch on their garden gate, it started glowing a deep red. The paint started to bubble and peel away. Another beam hit a spot on the dirt near the house, and a small cloud of steam began to rise from the ground. Frightened, the sisters rushed back into the house and locked the door tight. Their mother, still weak from sickness, looked scared and confused. Even though the curtains were closed, a faint blue light from outside still lit up the whole house. The buzzing sound continued, vibrating softly through the walls. Then, the radio in the living room suddenly turned on by itself, made a static noise, and then went completely silent. The phone did not work. Inside, they started to feel a tingling heat on their skin. Yolanda, who was by the kitchen window, felt sick and had to move away quickly. The dog, usually brave, was now hiding under a bed, shaking nonstop. They stayed close together for over an hour, not sure if they should escape or stay still. Then, without any hint, the buzzing stopped. The blue light faded. When Argentina looked through the curtain, the orbs had vanished. The smoke had cleared. The field was silent and dark. When the sun finally rose, the sisters stepped outside. The scent of ozone still hung in the air. The areas where the beams had touched the ground were burned. Plants nearby had wilted overnight. The spot on the gate where the beam had focused was clearly scorched, and the metal latch had twisted out of shape. The most unsettling thing they found was the grass. It was pressed down into perfect circles, each several meters across, exactly where the lights had hovered. News of the strange event quickly spread through the town of Trainus. Curious neighbors came to look at the burned land and the dying plants. The local police were informed and came to examine the area, taking notes and measurements. Reporters from the newspaper La Gazzetta, one of the most respected publications in the country, arrived to interview the family and capture photographs of the site. One of those reporters was Oscar Galindez. He later wrote a series of articles describing the event as one of the most convincing UFO reports in Argentine history. Within a matter of days, several professionals, including engineers and military experts, visited the site. They discovered signs of extreme heat, but there were no marks of fire or any chemical traces. The burned soil had unusual changes not normally seen in natural fires. No aircraft and no farming equipment could explain the shapes or the level of heat they found. Something even stranger happened to the nearby plant life. Months later, some crops near the location still did not grow properly, and new grass that was planted grew a pale yellow color and never turned green again. Leaves on nearby trees had dark, burned edges, as though touched by heat with no flame. The sisters were not the same either. Yolanda dealt with waves of nausea and sharp headaches that lasted for weeks. Magdalena developed skin rashes doctors could not explain. Their mother's condition got worse before slowly improving. Their dog, once lively and playful, became tired and never returned to its usual behavior. Although shaken by the experience, the Mareno sisters stayed consistent in how they told their story. During separate interviews, each sister gave nearly the same description of the lights, the beams, the strange smell, the smoke, and the strong feeling of heat. Polygraph tests given weeks later supported that they were telling the truth. To further support the event, La Gazzetta published photographs showing the burned ground and damaged plants. These pictures spread among UFO researchers around the world, reaching groups in the United States and Europe. The Trainus case soon earned a place among UFO investigators as a major high strangeness case, an event that had physical proof, medical effects, and several reliable witnesses. There were critics, of course. Some believed the damaged crops were caused by farm chemicals. Others thought it might have been a problem with nearby electrical transformers or a rare type of weather event. But none of those ideas could explain the melted latch, the beam-shaped burns, or the odd behavior of the electronics inside the house. No storms had moved through that night. No electrical surges had taken place. The local power company found nothing wrong in the area, and the shapes burned into the ground were far too exact to be a mistake. The Argentine Air Force did quietly carry out its own investigation, but their final report was never shared with the public. However, leaked notes from a local military office reportedly labeled the incident as unexplained aerial activity with no known source. No further steps were taken. As time moved on, the story of the Trainus incident slowly faded from the news, but it never vanished from the study of UFOs. The Mareno sisters only spoke about what happened when people asked. They never looked for attention. Years later, Argentina Mareno, wrote a short article for a local history magazine, confirming every detail she had shared back in 1963. Modern researchers who have re-examined the case say it remains very strong. Stored soil samples from the site still show signs of minerals being changed by exposure to a powerful local heat source. No sign of fire or fuel was ever found. Scientists who attempted to copy the soil effects using modern machines were not able to produce the same changes. One of the deepest mysteries still involves the beams. Some people later claim to have seen beams of light in other parts of northern Argentina that same night, although none of those events were as close or intense as what happened at the Mareno home. Some experts believe the objects may have been scanning the area, and the sisters' home happened to be in the path. Even after all these years, no clear answer has ever been found. Whatever happened left a lasting mark not only on the land but also on the family who experienced it. Argentina Mareno, now an older woman, once said this in a radio interview. "We were not meant to understand it. We were only meant to see it." Maybe she was right. The Trainus incident cannot be explained easily. It avoids the usual answers like swamp gas, dreams, or lies. It is a story where the silence felt louder than any airplane, and the forces involved seemed to burn more than the land. They left a memory in those who saw something come down from beyond the stars. The Gorman Dogfight. October 1st, 1948. Fargo, North Dakota, USA. The sky above Fargo, North Dakota, was clear that night. It was perfect weather for flying. It was October 1st, 1948, just after 9 p.m., when 25-year-old Lieutenant George Gorman, a pilot with the North Dakota Air National Guard, chose to stay in the air after finishing a cross-country flight. His fellow pilots had already landed at Hector Airport, but Gorman, flying his P-51 Mustang, had gotten permission from the tower to stay in the sky a little longer. As Lieutenant Gorman circled the city, he noticed a Piper Cub flying about 500 feet below him. Other than that, the sky was completely clear. Then, something unusual caught his attention. A blinking white light, small and moving slowly to the west of his location. It did not look like any regular aircraft. Gorman contacted the control tower by radio and asked if there were any other planes showing on radar. The response came back quickly. There were only 2 aircraft in the area, his plane and the Piper Cub. The strange object drew his curiosity. It had no navigation lights. There were no red or green signals, just a bright white light. Gorman decided to look closer. He turned the nose of his P-51 Mustang toward the object and began to accelerate. As he got within about 1,000 yards, the blinking stopped, and the object started to move again. It turned sharply to the left, avoiding Gorman's approach, almost as if it were under intelligent control. Gorman changed direction to follow. What happened next would go down as one of the strangest aerial chases in flight history. The white light increased its speed, and Gorman stayed with it. The object made a sudden climb, and Gorman followed, pushing his plane to nearly 400 miles per hour. Still, the object stayed ahead, just out of reach. At 7,000 feet, it veered straight toward Gorman's aircraft. Gorman braced himself, thinking it would collide, but at the last second, it shot upward, missing his plane by about 500 feet. Still determined, Gorman tried to climb once more. However, when the object reached 14,000 feet, his plane stalled. The silent light continued upward without stopping, disappearing into the dark sky. The entire event lasted about 27 minutes. In that time, Gorman believed the object had shown speed, turns, and control far beyond what he had seen, even in combat. It climbed faster, turned tighter, and seemed to react to his every move. He was convinced that some kind of intelligence was guiding it. Back in the Fargo control tower, two air traffic controllers had also seen the strange light. So did the pilot and passenger of the Piper Cub, who had entered the tower after landing, just in time to watch it all unfold. Each of the witnesses confirmed that they had seen the light moving on its own, just as Gorman had described, and all in real time. When Gorman finally landed, he appeared clearly shaken and reported feeling dizzy and confused. Even so, he immediately filed a full report with his commanding officers. Within just a few days, the United States Air Force sent investigators from Project Sign, the first official military program created to study unidentified flying objects. The investigation began with interviews. Gorman, the tower controllers, and the pilot of the Piper Cub were each questioned separately. All their stories matched closely. Investigators then checked Gorman's P-51 Mustang using a Geiger counter and discovered slightly higher than normal levels of radiation. Although this reading was later described as inconclusive, it raised a great deal of suspicion. The Project Sign team began working through every possible explanation they could think of. Weather balloons? None had been launched that night. Other aircraft? There were no other flight clearances in the area. Stars or planets? Jupiter had been visible, but not in the part of the sky Gorman had pointed out. Investigators were left without clear answers. Finally, the Air Force prepared a report claiming that Gorman may have seen a balloon lit up by city lights and had become disoriented while chasing it. They suggested the sudden movements and sharp turns were just tricks of angle, lighting, and fast motion. However, Gorman completely rejected this theory. In an official statement, he said, "I am convinced that there was thought behind its maneuvers. I was not hallucinating. It was not a balloon. The object was under intelligent control." He described how the object reacted to him directly, avoided his movements, climbed far faster than his aircraft could, and turned more sharply than anything he had ever seen. What made the object even stranger was how it appeared. It had no body, no wings, no tail, no engine sound. It did not wobble like a balloon or flicker like a flare. The light held a perfect shape, with steady movement and smooth changes in direction. It never once hesitated. Though the case stayed open, it was slowly pushed aside in the following months. Project Sign, and later Project Grudge and Project Blue Book, continued to record the event. Still, official descriptions leaned toward ordinary explanations, even though none could fully explain what happened that night. Within aviation and military circles, the Gorman dogfight slowly became legendary. This was not a casual observer. It was a well-trained, respected combat pilot flying one of the top fighter planes of the time. He was not a civilian and not someone given to wild imagination. He went after the object with complete focus and later described the event with clear and exact detail. And he had not been alone. Several ground witnesses had seen the same thing. According to later analysts, the most troubling detail was that Gorman had been outmatched. Even though his aircraft was built for speed and quick turns, He could not keep up. The glowing sphere operated with perfect precision, making sharp movements without a single sound or visible exhaust. It climbed straight up into the night sky, easily escaping his pursuit. Years after the event, Gorman remained loyal to his version of events. He never chased fame. He did not write any books or give public speeches. He simply said he had come across something that could not be explained, and he reminded people that others had witnessed it too. The United States Air Force never reopened the case,